Hey, what's going on? Today I am going to show you guys how to get lots of cutting boards or charcuterie boards from a single glue up. So you can see I've just taken some flattened boards and glued them up face to face. I didn't actually film this original glue up, but I'm going to show you guys real quick how I got to this point. So imagine these are milled, running through the planer on both sides. They just got to be real nice and flat so you can get a perfect glue joint. So after that, you're going to take your blank and you're going to flatten one side of the edge grain. You can do that however you want. You can use the table saw, you can just run it back and forth through the planer if that works better for you. It kind of depends how accurate your glue up is in the first place. But the goal is we want one flat side that's going to ride that planer's table so that every time we pass through the bandsaw, we are going to flatten the recently cut side. Bandsaw cuts are rough. The piece isn't going to square up against the bandsaw fence for the subsequent cut unless we flatten it with the planer in between each pass. Alright, so now that reference side I was just talking about is going to be down on a planer table, and the side that's getting cut and planed again is the side that was just up against the bandsaw blade for that last cut. Squaring it up again so that we can ride the bandsaw fence and get a nice accurate cut. Over the bandsaw now, here it is, covered in dust as usual. We are going to measure about 3/4 inches here, and we really just want to end up with at least 1/2 inch or so thickness after all the sanding, the error off the bandsaw, and the replaning of the individual boards that we're going to have to do next. But let's get this thing all cut up. Here's pass number 1. Sorry, it's a little grainy. The camera insisted on focusing on the light for the bandsaw, but here you go. Here's a little outline of the process. We're going to cut a board off this blank. We're going to reflatten that cut side with the planer, and we're going to repeat that until we're out of material. We're going to end up with a bunch of big long boards, and we'll throw those through the planer again. Alright, here we go, setting up for the next pass on the bandsaw, sending this through the planer with the reference side down again. Getting that top nice and flat, we're going to butt that up to the bandsaw fence again and put it through. Alright, here we go. This pass has gone a lot smoother, the piece is lighter. That's always helpful. You could go bigger than this glue up if you had the machines to bear the weight. I don't really, my machines are pretty decent, but they could be sturdier. So this is the size I was comfortable with. If you got a buddy who can help you pass a big glue up through jointer, planer, and bandsaw, yeah, you could go real big with this and do a big batch build with just one glue up. This last pass is luckily gonna land us with 2 very similarly sized boards. The last offcut there is actually a little thicker than the rest of the boards, but that's cool. I'm just gonna plane it down to the same exact thickness, since all these are gonna get run through the planer again next. So here we go. Bunch of long boards. Edge grain looks nice. Pretty happy about it. Let's get them cleaned up. So I want to leave these as thick as possible to give them the best shot of not warping over time, but at the same time I want to get rid of all marks from the bandsaw and any uneven areas of the wood from the whole process. So yeah, take your time, take multiple passes, multiple small passes to preserve as much material as you can, but get all those flaws out, and we're going to set up for sanding at 120 next. Alright, here they are all cleaned up. looking a lot better now. We are ready to make our first pass with the random orbit sander. We're going to start off at 120 grit, then we're going to hit them with a 180, and then eventually 220. And if you want, you can go up to 400. So the style of board I'm going for here lends itself real nicely to just drawing out the board. Just take your time, get some nice curves. You can see the first one here, I'm kind of going for this double-handled situation. I've never really done anything like that. I just wanted to try it out, see how it goes. For the rest, I'm going to find the middle, and I'm going to place the handle of each board. 2 boards per larger board is what I'm going for here. 2 boards per slice of that blank that we cut up is what I'm going for here. So I'm going to have the handles kind of sit side by side if I can across the middle. So I've just measured out the middle for a reference, and you can see I got the handles drawn side by side here to try to make the most of the board. So we're going to bring this over to the bandsaw, cut it out to the best of our ability. I don't have a scroll saw blade on there, and I'm pretty new with the bandsaw, so the odds are against me, but I'm going to take little nibbles, try to be safe about it, and just try to learn. You could do this with a jigsaw if you wanted to, or even a coping saw. Simple hand tool, get a nice one. I don't have one, or I would drop a link to one for you. But yeah, you do not need this bandsaw to do this part of the process. You definitely do not. And if you don't have a jigsaw yet, I will toss a link to mine down below. It's very inexpensive. I love it. You can do so much with it. So I'm just going to take some time to cut all these out. Looks like I'm going to get 11 or so additional boards. So yeah, feel free to skip ahead if you don't want to watch me on the bandsaw. Yeah, I could obviously be using this thing a little more efficiently. I would definitely recommend if you're going to do a big batch like this, get yourself a scroll saw blade for the bandsaw, a nice thin blade. The one that's on there right now is a resaw blade. I don't actually have a much better blade than this, so nothing for me to swap to, so I'm just kind of making do with what I got. But this has definitely been an eye-opener for me to get a scroll saw blade, which is going to turn a lot more easily through the workpiece. For next time. So we ended up with 11 boards total. Would have had 12 if we didn't do the experimental double-handled board, and would have been another 4, so 16 total if I hadn't already cut a couple of pieces off of this blank for Christmas presents. But yeah, all in all, that many boards in one build, I mean, at the right craft fair, that could easily get you $500. Depends what you want to charge for them and, you know, the area that you're in, but a nice multi-wood board with a hole drilled in the handle, yeah, you could definitely expect to go over 30 bucks a board pretty easily. So we're going to swap out our drill bit so we can cut that pretty little hole to hang from, and that's going to add value to the board. Definitely recommend doing that. So we're going to use a 5/8 inch Forstner bit here. These are good for creating flat holes in objects. That's the point of a Forstner bit. So be careful when you're drilling these holes. You don't want tear out on the back side of the workpiece. So to avoid that, go most of the way through the piece as you're drilling your hole. Let the point of the Forstner bit, but not the rest of the bit, cut through the workpiece, and then flip it over. Use the hole left from the point of the bit to line yourself up, and then punch through the other side. That's going to give you a nice clean hole from both sides. You don't want to ruin all the work that you just did and cause yourself more of a headache. So you see me do what I just described here. Going through the first side now, and before going all the way through, we're going to back out. We're going to flip. You can see we got this little hole that we kind of pierced through, and then that's going to line the bit up when we go through the other side. And there you have it. Nice clean hole on both sides. No problem. Going to take a moment to do the rest of these real quick, and then we're on to the next step. Alright, everybody's cut out. We got holes punched in the handles, so now we are going to shape these the rest of the way on the oscillating spindle sander. I definitely recommend picking up one of these if you are going to do projects like this with curves. They can save you, you know, just even end grain sanding, like this thing will save you so much time. This really was one of my best purchases. Anyhow, here we go. We're going to spend some time shaping these, getting them nice and smooth. The end of this edge belt that I have on there already is a pretty good shape for most of what we're going to be doing. Anything really tight we'll get with a file or with some hand sanding. Got the edges relatively smooth. Everything's looking good. So you can see, yeah, on this one handle here, ended up with some nubs because of the way I cut it on the bandsaw. The rest of them look really nice though. I'm not going to have much work to do with the hand sanding. I might have to take a file to that other one. Just spending a little bit of time cleaning these up with some hand sanding, you know, getting the stuff that the oscillating sander couldn't. And now it is time to raise the grain on these boards. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a wet paper towel and just get the surface of these boards wet. You don't have to really saturate them too bad. You just, you know, change the color on them, make them look wet. But we want them to dry in a reasonable amount of time so we can do the next step. So the purpose of this, right, is after you wash a cutting board, if you don't do this step, it's going to feel super rough, no matter how smooth you sanded it in the first place. That's because all the individual wood fibers get raised. So what you can do is you can sand the board once, raise the grain like this, and then sand it again. And then after you wash that board for the first time, it's going to still be as smooth as it was before. Pretty essential tip, I think. So you can see I've wet these, let them dry, and then come back, and both rounds of sanding were done at 220. Now's a good time to go ahead and hit the top edge, just to soften it up and break the corner a little bit. Finally, the best part, we get to finish these. All right, so we're going to put food safe mineral oil on these. We're going to put a pretty generous coat. Not going to worry about saturating the board too much. No need to like soak it in a tub or anything. If you are only putting mineral oil on, yeah, maybe do that. But we're going to add another component after this. It's going to make these boards look new for much longer than if we use mineral oil alone. I'll throw a link down in the description to this oil. It's from 13 Chefs. I find it really easy to apply. So just going to spend a little bit of time getting all surfaces coated in this oil, trying to put a little bit extra on those end grain areas that I know are going to drink it right up. I haven't really talked about that yet. Apart from looking nice and getting that ray flecking that you can see in this shot here, edge grain boards are a little tougher. They don't get beat up by the knife quite as badly as face grain boards. They're not quite as strong as end grain boards, but they are very sturdy. So there they are, all the boards. You could be done at this point. You don't have to do this next step if you go heavy enough with this mineral oil, and you can always just keep adding coats of mineral oil till you're happy. But I definitely recommend putting this food safe wax on. It repels water and it's going to make this board look brand new for much longer than it would if you only applied the oil. It makes a big difference. I've tested it in my kitchen a number of times. The boards that have this wax need refinishing way less often. They just look nicer. So I'll drop a link to this stuff in the description as well. I have countless times before because it's great. This stuff liquefies pretty easy. With friction, you really don't need to soak it in hot water or anything like that. What you want to do is just get it on the board to start. It can be streaky, that's fine. We're going to let it tack up a little bit, and then we're going to buff it in. So you can get away with using a paper towel like I am for this step here, but I wouldn't for the buffing stage up next because the fibers of the paper towel will likely disintegrate and get all over your workpiece. So I would use a proper rag for the next part. Focus on that end grain a little bit. It's going to drink finish a lot more than the other parts of the board. So definitely good to give it a little extra attention when it comes to putting that wax on. All right, give that at least 20 minutes or so to tack up, and then take a clean cloth like this. This is just a t-shirt rag that I have. Ball it up, and what you want to do is buff it in small circles. You're trying to build up a little bit of friction on the piece as you go. And if you kind of turn your arm into a little machine buffer, you'll get a really nice even coat of wax. I find this wax extremely easy to work with. You're going to go from having a wet, streaky looking board to having like a nice kind of shiny patina on the board. Hopefully you can see that a little bit as I buff in. Nice and smooth after you buff. After this wax is buffed in like this, you want to give it about 24 hours to cure completely. You can use it before then. It is beeswax based and it's food safe. It's no issue. It's just the board might be slightly goopy, slightly wet feeling for that first 24 hours. But after that period, it's going to harden up into a durable finish and you can put another coat on if you'd like. So there they are. I hope you had fun watching this. I hope you got some inspiration. This is likely going to be craft fair inventory for us. I really love the idea that you can just kind of draw the individual pieces, cut them out, shape them, and as long as you get nice curves, they look great. Hey, if you like this, consider liking the video and subscribing so you can see more like this. Thanks.